There is a place in the highlands of northern Ethiopia where giant stone towers rise from the earth like silent witnesses. Some are broken. Some still stand. Beneath them are tombs, ruins, ancient inscriptions, and the remains of a civilization that once controlled one of the richest trade routes in the world. This place is Aksum. Today, its name is far less famous than Rome, Egypt, or Persia. But nearly 2,000 years ago, Aksum was not a forgotten kingdom. It was one of the great powers of its age. And hidden inside the story of Aksum is an even older mystery. For centuries, Ethiopian tradition has claimed that the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred chest connected in the Bible with Moses, the Ten Commandments, and the presence of God, did not disappear forever. It came to Ethiopia. And according to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, it is still there. But is that history? Faith? Political legend? Or could an ancient tradition preserve the memory of something real? To understand the mystery of the Ark, we first have to understand the kingdom that became its guardian. Aksum rose in the Horn of Africa, in a region that now includes northern Ethiopia and Eritrea. Its position was extraordinary. To the west lay the African interior. To the east was the Red Sea, opening routes toward Arabia, Egypt, the Mediterranean, and the Indian Ocean. Through the port of Adulis, Aksum became deeply connected to international trade. Ivory, gold, animal products, incense, and other goods moved toward the coast. Foreign merchants brought luxury products from the Roman world, Arabia, and lands farther east. This was not an isolated African kingdom. Aksum was connected to the wider ancient world. Its rulers built monumental stone structures, carved inscriptions, and minted their own coins in gold, silver, and bronze. Coinage was more than money. It was a message. It showed royal authority, wealth, religion, and the ability to trade across borders. The most dramatic evidence of Aksum's ambition still stands in the city today. The stele. These enormous carved stone monuments were raised above elite burial areas. Some were designed to look like tall buildings made of stone, with false doors and rows of carved windows. The largest known example collapsed long ago, but its broken pieces still reveal the engineering power of the people who created it. Aksum was building on a scale meant to impress the living and honor the dead. Aksum's power was not limited to the African highlands. By the 6th century, its rulers were strong enough to send armies across the Red Sea into southern Arabia. Under King Caleb, Aksum intervened in the kingdom of Himyar in Yemen during a violent religious conflict. Byzantine rulers followed these events closely because the Red Sea mattered to trade, diplomacy, and the struggle for influence between great powers. This tells us something important. Aksum was not standing at the edge of the ancient world. It was standing inside it. Its kings could negotiate with distant empires, move forces across the sea, and influence events on both sides of one of the world's most important commercial corridors. Any story that presents Aksum as a small, hidden kingdom misses how powerful it once was. But the kingdom was about to change. In the 4th century, a ruler named Ezana became one of the most important kings in Aksumite history. During his reign, Christianity became tied to royal power. The change can be seen directly on Aksumite coins. Earlier religious symbols gave way to the Christian cross. That small change on metal tells us something enormous. Aksum had joined the early Christian world. This happened centuries before Christianity reached many parts of Northern Europe. Aksum became one of the earliest major states to adopt Christianity, and the religious culture that developed there would survive long after the kingdom's political power declined. That survival matters. Because the mystery of the Ark is not simply a modern treasure story. It lives inside Ethiopian Christianity. But where did the Ark story begin? According to the Hebrew Bible, the Ark of the Covenant was a sacred chest made during the time of Moses. It was associated with the covenant between God and the Israelites and with the tablets of the law. Biblical tradition later places it in Jerusalem, in the temple connected with King Solomon. Then the trail becomes unclear. In 586 BCE, Babylonian forces destroyed Jerusalem and the first temple. Ancient accounts describe temple objects being taken away, but the Ark itself does not appear clearly among the captured treasures. After that, its historical fate is unknown. And that silence created one of the greatest mysteries in religious history. Was it destroyed? Hidden before the invasion? Taken somewhere else? Many traditions tried to answer that question. But Ethiopia developed one of the most powerful answers of all. The central Ethiopian account appears in the Kebra Nagast, or Glory of the Kings, a famous work preserved in Guizi. In the form known today, the text belongs to the medieval period, many centuries after the age traditionally associated with Solomon. Its story begins with the Queen of Sheba, known in Ethiopian tradition as Makeda. She hears of the wisdom of King Solomon and travels to Jerusalem. Their meeting leads to the birth of a son, Menelik. When Menelik grows older, he travels to Jerusalem to meet his father. Later, he returns toward Ethiopia with companions. And this is where the story becomes extraordinary. According to the Kebra Nagast, the Ark of the Covenant leaves Jerusalem and travels with Menelik's group. In the story, its transfer is not presented as an ordinary theft. It becomes part of a divine plan. The sacred sign of a new relationship between God and Ethiopia. For later Ethiopian kings, this story carried enormous meaning. If their royal line came from Solomon, and if the Ark itself had come to Ethiopia, then the monarchy was not simply political. It was sacred. The kingdom could see itself as part of biblical history. But this is exactly where a careful investigation must separate tradition from evidence. The surviving Kebra Nagast is medieval, while Solomon is traditionally placed more than 2,000 years earlier. Historians have often understood the work as a text that helps support the legitimacy of Ethiopia's Solomonic dynasty. That does not automatically mean every tradition inside it was invented at the moment the text was written. Stories can exist orally before they are written down. Religious traditions can preserve older memories. But at present, there is no accepted archaeological proof showing that the biblical Ark traveled from ancient Jerusalem to Ethiopia in the time of Menelik. So the story remains unverified. Yet it did not remain only on a page. In Aksum, the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church maintains that the Ark is kept at the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. The object is not displayed to the public. According to church tradition, only a chosen guardian may approach it. Even senior religious figures do not normally inspect it freely. This restriction has made independent testing almost impossible. And that creates a strange historical problem. If outsiders cannot examine the object, they cannot confirm its age, material, construction, or origin. But they also cannot scientifically prove that the protected object is not ancient. The claim remains outside normal archaeological verification. For believers, this is not a weakness. Sacred objects do not need laboratory approval. For historians, however, faith and evidence are different questions. There is also another important Ethiopian tradition. The tablet. In Ethiopian Orthodox practice, churches possess sacred tablets or altar objects connected symbolically with the Ark and the tablets of the covenant. During major religious festivals, tablets may be carried in solemn procession, covered and treated with extraordinary reverence. This means the Ark is not just a lost object in Ethiopian culture. It is a living religious idea. Its memory shapes worship, architecture, ceremony, kingship, and national history. And this may explain why the Ethiopian Ark tradition survived so strongly while many other Ark theories remained only speculation. But what about the true origin of the Ark? If we mean the Ark described in the Bible, its origin belongs to Israelite sacred tradition. The biblical story places its construction in the wilderness during the time of Moses, long before the rise of Aksum. If we mean the origin of Ethiopia's claim to possess the Ark, the answer is more complicated. The tradition connects Ethiopia to Solomon, the Queen of Sheba, and Menelik. Its best-known written form is medieval, but elements of Ethiopian biblical identity are older. Christianity had already taken deep root in Aksum in late antiquity, and Ethiopian religious culture developed a powerful connection to Old Testament symbols. Over time, the Ark became more than an object. It became a bridge between Jerusalem and Aksum, between ancient Israel and Christian Ethiopia, between royal power and sacred history. So perhaps the deepest mystery is not simply, where is the Ark? The deeper question is, why did Ethiopia become the place where the Ark story remained alive? Aksum gives us part of the answer. This was a kingdom wealthy enough to trade with great empires, confident enough to carve giant monuments, and connected enough to absorb ideas from Africa, Arabia, and the Mediterranean. When its kings adopted Christianity, they did not enter history as passive followers. They created their own powerful Christian civilization. Then Aksum's international importance began to weaken. Trade routes changed. Political powers around the Red Sea shifted. The kingdom gradually lost the position it had once held at the center of long-distance commerce. Its great age faded. Its monuments remained. Its faith remained. And the Ark tradition remained. That is why Aksum feels so mysterious today. The broken stelae tell us that the kingdom was real. The coins tell us that its rulers were wealthy and internationally connected. The crosses on those coins tell us when a major religious transformation took place. But the most famous object associated with Aksum cannot be studied in the same way. It sits behind a wall of belief, ritual, and silence. There is no verified archaeological evidence proving that the object guarded in Aksum is the biblical Ark of the Covenant. There is also no confirmed discovery elsewhere that solves the Ark's fate. The historical record still ends in uncertainty. And perhaps that is why the mystery survives. For some, the Ark in Aksum is a sacred truth. For others, it is a medieval political tradition built around older religious ideas. For archaeologists, it is an extraordinary claim that cannot be confirmed without evidence. But all three views lead us back to the same forgotten kingdom. Aksum. A civilization that once linked Africa with Arabia, Rome, and the Indian Ocean. A kingdom that raised stone towers over royal graves. A kingdom that placed the cross on its coins. A kingdom whose religious descendants still guard one of the most famous mysteries in human history. Maybe the greatest secret of Aksum is not that it can prove where the Ark is. Maybe it is that, while empires disappeared and trade routes changed, Ethiopia kept the story alive. Behind the walls of a church in the ancient city, a guardian continues a tradition that has survived generations. No cameras reveal the object. No laboratory has settled the question. No excavation has closed the case. And so the Ark remains where history often becomes most fascinating. Between evidence and belief. Between memory and legend. And between the world we can prove. And the world that still refuses to give up its secrets.